my name is Catherine and I'm currently an occupational therapy ComServe. I work at the Telemokarani Regional Hospital in Gauteng, South Africa. September is Spinal Cord Awareness Month, and I wanted to create awareness for those living with spinal cord injuries who may use a wheelchair for their everyday life. As a therapist, I often find myself thinking that patients would be absolutely fine when they got discharged. I mean, we had given them suggestions for environmental adaptations and taught adapted methods and improved aspects like muscle strength and endurance. So technically, they should be fine, right? In reality, life outside the hospital is probably very different and difficult to adjust to. But just what makes it so different to what we expect and what we teach? As a relatively strong occupational therapist with knowledge of these adaptive skills, I've challenged myself to live 3 days of my life as if I was a paraplegic wheelchair user. With the exception of driving to and from work and moving the wheelchair in and out of the car. I want to see almost exactly what life would be like and how my occupations would be affected. I really hope to gain some insight that I can share with you to either improve your awareness of persons with spinal cord injuries or help you to become a better therapist or just a better person in general. So keep watching to see what happens. Okay, so it's the end of my first day at work. I'm taking the wheelchair home with me. As you can see, I managed to get it packed into the car.
Wheelchair transfer from the car to number 1. And eat at the same time. So my lovely friend Devin is pushing me.
Okay, so I'm at my house now. The wheelchair can't go up to any of our main front entrances, so I've had to use one of our side alleys. It was quite a struggle to get the gate open from the wheelchair. It was because the lock is quite high up and I couldn't reach so well. And then once we're in the alley, as you can see, it's quite narrow. I had to close the wheelchair to get it past a drain, and then to close the gate behind me because I couldn't reach it because the drain was in the way. So now I'm going to get back into the wheelchair and wheel myself. So I've summarized what I felt were the biggest things to take forward with me into my treatment and to just keep in mind when meeting persons using a wheelchair. Number 1 is time. I felt like all my activities just took so much longer to do. Transferring in and out of a wheelchair to various surfaces takes a much longer amount of time, and as a result, you spend more time on those activities. Mobilizing in a wheelchair requires both hands and concentration, especially in smaller areas, so you also can't multitask and do things like read a text or drink water while you walk. Because it took me longer to do stuff, I cut down on some of the activities or tried to avoid them. For instance, I would drink less water to avoid going to the bathroom as much, and I cut down on my gym routine. At the end of the day, I was absolutely exhausted and knew that I had to get up even earlier the next day to make it to work on time. This brings me to the next aspect, planning. I definitely had to plan better because moving around in the wheelchair was time-consuming and tiring. I especially had to plan better when my hands started getting sore and I had difficulty opening and closing them. There was no such thing as just popping into a shopping centre and being out again before the 15-minute free parking limit expired. Even going between the gym where I treated the patients and the office where I had forgotten some things one morning required more planning so that I didn't have to do it multiple times. I had to plan my activities better around how much longer it was going to take me to get stuff done, like waking up earlier to get ready for work and keeping all my makeup in one area so I wasn't rolling back and forth. Even before starting this challenge, I had planned not to do it when I knew that I had to be somewhere that was not wheelchair accessible. And during the challenge, I found myself saying no to last-minute dinner plans because I knew the effort I would have to go through was so much more than before. I'm not saying it's impossible to do the activities you need and want to do. It just requires some time to correctly structure your day. This brings me to the final takeaway aspect, adjustment. The first adjustments I had to make were around time and planning. In addition to this, I had to adjust to how I was limited in reaching for things during activities and had to ask for help more often. Even though floors and roads were often smooth, they sometimes had dips and slants, and I really felt exhausted after going on them, but I still had to continue with my activities. I also felt a little bit more vulnerable because it was so easy for someone to just come up behind me and start pushing me, and I always felt like I was at a lower height to those around me. Trying to stop them by grabbing wheels or pushing them would likely result in me injuring my hands. And lastly, it wasn't just me that needed to adapt. It was also my family, friends, and work colleagues. Everyone around me had to make adjustments so that I had a little more time, and they could take on a little bit more work so that everything still got done on time. The effects on family can easily be forgotten, yet it is such a major aspect, especially when thinking about environmental adjustments in the home and the ways that roles in the house may change. Okay, so I've really learned a lot from this experience, and I hope you did too. I really challenge all of you out there who are working with patients or persons with spinal cord injuries or persons with wheelchairs to put yourself in their situation, spend a day in a wheelchair and see how it'll affect your outlook on life. See you next time. Bye.